All right, let's take a look at this text. We got it diagrammed all the way out. It took a long time. You guys were, if you watched that video, you saw it took a long time. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and I'm going to identify all the verbs in this text. So starting right here, God shows. There's a verb. And I'm going to highlight that in green. And I realized why, yesterday I was looking for my orange. I realized normally I do this in Google Sheets. And so I've got more colors. And I don't know why for this video I chose to do it on a Word document. I do my sermon texts, my sermon outlines. I do those on Word documents. So maybe that's what I was thinking. I don't know, but normally I do this on Google Docs. It's actually a lot easier. But we're just going to continue this one on a Word document. So I do have a color scheme, like the colors mean things to me, like orange. I know what it means. Green usually means one thing, something. So have your own little color coding, know what the different colors mean. But anyway, so we're going to go through, we're just going to highlight all the verbs here in green. So shows, all who have sinned will also perish. Those are verbs, all verbs. All who have sinned will be judged. I could just highlight, judged or perish, but the way these are going to be written in the Greek, it's going to be in probably the future tense, and so it's going to be one verb there. For it is not, there's a verb, who are righteous. You know what? Let's just put the verbs going to be are righteous there. But the doers of the law will be justified. There's our verb. For when Gentiles who do not have the law do what the law requires, so do is my verb, they are a law to themselves, even though they do not have the law. They show that the work of the law is written on their hearts, while their conscience also bears witness. That's our verb. And their conflicting thoughts accuse or even excuse on the day when, according to my gospel, God judges. All right, so there's our verbs. That's going to help me go through and see, okay, who is doing what here. As I'm reading through this text, we haven't even got to the part yet where we're just going to start making observations and notes and all that. So this is going to be helpful to see who's doing what. God is doing something here. People are doing something here. And on and on and on. So we want to see the actions that are taking place, and we want to see who is doing them. So just even from this, let's take a look. God shows no partiality. For all who have sinned without the law will also perish. So this group of people, all who have sinned, are also performing this verb, will also perish. So those performing this verb will also perform this verb. And then we jump right down here, and all who perform this verb will perform this verb. Same subject right there, right? For it is not. So we got a negative verb here. The hearers of the law who are righteous, but it is the doers of the law who will be judged. For when Gentiles who do not have. All right, so we've got our verbs there. Now I'm going to start going through and I'm going to take a look and I'm going to start seeing what in the world Paul is talking about here. All right, so God shows no partiality. And we said yesterday, this is that 4 right there is really letting me know that this ties the passage back to what came previously, and we'll look at that later. But right now, let's figure out with what we have. For, as an explanation, All who have sinned without the law will also perish without the law. And all who have sinned under the law will be judged by the law. So one thing I want us to notice here is he's talking about all who have sinned and all who have sinned. So isn't this the same group of people? No, we got our modifiers right here. This group of people sinned without the law. This group of people sinned under the law. So one thing we want to notice here, nowhere does Paul have a group of people who have not sinned. All right, so it's not a matter of have they sinned or have they not sinned. It's a matter of under what condition did they sin? Did they sin with the law or did they sin without the law? So I'm just going to make a note here. No category for non-sinners. I'm just going to put a dash there to help me. And then I'm going to highlight that in yellow. That just knows this is a note I've made and an observation. So, two categories of people, but we just need to make sure we notice that it's two categories of sinners. So it's not a question of whether or not they have sinned. It's a question of the condition they were in when they sinned. Were they without the law or were they under the law? Okay, that's interesting. What about this? So those who have sinned without the law, what action are they performing? They will perish. All right, so that's not good. That category of people, their outcome, let's write that just so we know what's going on here. Their outcome is perishing. So this category of sinners, that's their outcome. This category of sinners under the law will be judged. Okay, well, that's their outcome. So I'll just go ahead and give you spoiler alert. This is not a good thing being judged here. That's not good news. And so both of them, all right, we got a category of sinners, a category of sinners. What modifies it? Without the law, under the law, their outcome is not good. Their outcome is not good. So what's Paul trying to say here? Well, now we've got more modifiers. It's modifying their outcome. Their outcome will be without the law. Their outcome will be with the law. So we got two categories of sinners. Each have a very similar outcome, and their outcome is modified in the same way their sinning is modified. So, however you sin, that is also how your outcome will be meted out to you. You sin without the law, okay, you perish without the law. You sin under the law, okay, you're judged under the law. But again, come back to this. There is no category for non-sinners. And that's the point Paul is making here. He's making this point that it doesn't matter if you have the law, if you don't have the law, if you have sinned, you're still going to face judgment. You're still going to perish. And so it's not like you could say, well, these sinners are better off because they didn't have the law. Well, they're going to perish. Well, these sinners are better off because they had the law. Well, they're still going to be judged. It's not a good thing. And that's what Paul is doing here. He's saying he shows no partiality. Okay, you're a sinner and you're a sinner. You didn't have a law, so you'll perish without the law. You're a sinner. You had the law. Well, you'll be judged by the law. Why? Well, God shows no partiality. It's not like he says, well, you know what? You had the law, so you know what? I like you more. I'm going to take it easier on you. Nope, you'll be judged with the law if you had a law. You know what? You didn't have the law, so man, I'm going to take it easy on you. No, you'll perish without the law. Why? God shows no partiality. So that's what he's doing. That's what this 4 is. So that's why it's so important. He's showing this is an explanation of this statement. God shows no partiality. Okay, so we've got that all set. We got 2 classes of sinners here, 2 categories of sinners, and their outcomes. So if I was just going to take this verse right here and say, what's my subject? It's sinners, I think, because talking about sinners. Remember, as you move over to the left, you're going to have more subject, more substance. So 2 categories of sinners. So I would say my subject here would be sinners. And then as we move to the right, all this stuff that modifies are going to tell us more about the subject. It's going to narrow the scope. And so what is Paul saying about sinners? He's talking about their outcome. And so the subject and scope of verse 12 here would be the outcome for sinners, the fate of sinners, if you will. So it'd be easy to read into this and say, okay, let's talk about how I can't even think about it now. Okay, for somebody who lived perfect, or let's talk about justification by faith alone, or let's talk about any number of things. But Paul doesn't mention any of that here. The subject is sinners. The scope is their outcome, and what determines their outcome. And so if we're going to preach the text, that's what we've got to stick to. So that's how I do that. And then I'm going to take that and I'm going to go do the same thing for verses 13, 14, 15, 16. And so when I start looking at each one of those, and I'm going to start saying, okay, how does this now tie back up to this idea that there is a fate for sinners? Paul explaining the fate of sinners. It is not the hearers of the law who are righteous before God, but it is the doers of the law who will be justified. Okay, so here we're going to have 2 more categories of people. And in some way, because of this 4, I know this is all going to explain or add to or flesh out this statement. That 4 tells me that this is all tied to what came before it. And then guess what? We're going to have another 4. And I know that this, before I even do it, I know that this is going to all be tied into this, which is all going to be tied into this, which is all explaining this. So Paul is just working his way down to explain how God shows no partiality, because all are sinners. It's just a matter of what kind of sinner you are. So instead of taking you all the way through all of that, just get an idea. That's what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be working through the rest of this text, and I'm going to start building together. I want to know, what is the subject of this text? What is Paul talking about? And then I'm going to narrow the scope. What is he saying about them? So I don't know when I get through this if I'm still going to say the subject is sinners. The subject could be God and his judgment. I don't know yet. I haven't done it. But whatever, let's just say my subject is sinners. Okay, I can't just go up and preach a sermon on sinners. Paul is saying something specific about sinners. I need to know the subject is sinners. What is Paul saying about sinners? And so I'm going to narrow my scope. And so I'm going to have my subject and my scope. All right, that's what we got.